Right now, in this very moment, you've made a powerful decision. You've chosen to invest in yourself, in your peace of mind, and in your mental well-being. That decision alone tells me something important about you. You're ready for change. Maybe anxiety has been weighing you down. Perhaps you find yourself lying awake at night, replaying conversations in your head, worrying about tomorrow, or feeling overwhelmed by the endless demands of daily life. Maybe you feel like you're constantly on edge, waiting for the next crisis, the next problem, the next thing to go wrong. If any of this sounds familiar, I want you to know something right now. You're not alone, and you're not broken. What you're experiencing is part of being human in a world that moves faster than ever before. But here's the good news. You can learn to manage these feelings. You can build a mind that stays calm under pressure, that responds instead of reacts, and that finds peace even in chaos. Over the next few hours, we're going to take a journey together. This isn't just another self-help program filled with empty promises. This is a practical guide based on real psychology, real techniques, and real-world application. Everything I share with you has been tested, proven, and used by countless people to transform their mental state from anxious and overwhelmed to calm and empowered. You're going to learn 10 fundamental principles that will change how you experience life. We'll start by understanding what anxiety really is and why your mind creates it in the first place. Then, we'll move through practical techniques you can use immediately. Breathing exercises that calm your nervous system in seconds, thought patterns that build resilience instead of fear, and daily habits that create lasting mental strength. You'll discover how to quiet the constant chatter in your mind, how to sleep better at night, and how to face challenges with confidence instead of dread. You'll learn why some people seem naturally calm while others struggle, and more importantly, you'll learn how to become one of those calm, centered people yourself. Each chapter builds on the last, creating a complete system for mental wellness. By the end, you won't just have techniques. You'll have a new way of thinking, a new relationship with your thoughts, and a toolkit you can use for the rest of your life. But I need to be honest with you about something. This can only help you if you're willing to do the work. Knowledge without action is just information. What separates people who overcome anxiety from those who continue to struggle isn't intelligence or willpower. It's simply this. They take what they learn and they apply it day after day until new patterns become automatic. So as we go through each chapter, I encourage you to really listen. Don't just hear the words, absorb them. Imagine yourself using these techniques. Picture yourself staying calm in situations that used to trigger anxiety. See yourself sleeping peacefully, waking up refreshed, and moving through your day with confidence and clarity. This transformation is possible for you. I've seen it happen thousands of times, and I believe in your ability to make it happen. Your mind is incredibly powerful, and right now, we're going to harness that power to create the peace and mental strength you deserve. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's begin this journey together toward a calmer, stronger, more peaceful you. Understanding anxiety, your mind's false alarm system. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a successful marketing manager, mother of 2, and by all external measures, she has it all together. But every Sunday evening, like clockwork, she would feel her chest tighten. Her heart would race. Her mind would flood with worries about the week ahead. The presentation on Tuesday, the difficult client on Wednesday, the possibility that she'd forgotten something important. By Sunday night, she could barely sleep. Sarah didn't have a clinical anxiety disorder. She had something millions of people experience. Everyday anxiety that had become a constant companion. And the worst part? She felt anxious about being anxious. She'd think, why can't I just relax? What's wrong with me? Nothing was wrong with Sarah, and nothing is wrong with you. To understand anxiety and ultimately control it, we first need to understand what it actually is and why your brain creates it. Anxiety is your brain's alarm system. Imagine you're living thousands of years ago, walking through tall grass on the savannah. Suddenly, you hear a rustling sound. Instantly, your body floods with stress hormones. Your heart pounds. Your muscles tense. Your breathing quickens. You're ready to run or fight. This reaction might save your life because that rustling could be a predator. This is the fight or flight response, and it's one of evolution's greatest gifts. The problem is that your ancient brain can't tell the difference between a lion in the grass and an angry email from your boss. It responds the same way to both, with anxiety. Your amygdala, the brain's alarm center, is constantly scanning for threats. When it detects something it perceives as dangerous, it triggers the stress response before your logical brain even has time to evaluate whether the threat is real. This is why anxiety often feels irrational. Your thinking brain knows that giving a presentation won't actually kill you, but your emotional brain treats it like a life-threatening situation. Understanding this distinction is crucial. Anxiety isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that your alarm system is too sensitive. And just like you can adjust the sensitivity on a smoke detector, you can recalibrate your brain's threat detection system. Let me share another example. Michael was a college student who experienced panic attacks before exams. His heart would race so fast he thought he was having a heart attack. He'd feel dizzy and disconnected from reality. These panic attacks became so intense that he started avoiding situations where they might occur, which meant avoiding exams, which affected his grades, which created more anxiety. It was a vicious cycle. When Michael learned what was actually happening in his body during a panic attack, everything changed. He discovered that panic attacks, while terrifying, are not dangerous. They're the result of his body's stress response getting stuck in overdrive. Once he understood that his racing heart was just adrenaline, not a heart attack, and that the dizzy feeling was just hyperventilation, not a stroke, he stopped being afraid of the panic attacks themselves. And paradoxically, when he stopped fearing them, they became less frequent and less intense. This brings us to a critical truth. Anxiety feeds on fear and uncertainty. When you don't understand what's happening to you, you naturally create catastrophic explanations. Your mind fills in the blanks with worst-case scenarios. But when you understand the mechanism, when you recognize anxiety for what it is, a false alarm, you take away much of its power. Now, let's talk about the different types of anxiety you might experience. There's acute anxiety, which is intense but short-lived, like the nervousness before giving a speech. This type of anxiety usually has a clear trigger and disappears once the situation passes. Then there's chronic anxiety, which is a persistent, low-level worry that colors everything you do. This is the type where you're constantly waiting for something bad to happen, constantly checking and rechecking things, constantly feeling on edge even when there's no specific threat. This is what Sarah experienced every Sunday evening. And for many people, it becomes their baseline state of being. There's also anticipatory anxiety, where you worry excessively about future events. Your mind creates elaborate scenarios of everything that could go wrong, and you experience the emotional distress as if these scenarios were actually happening. This is particularly cruel because you're essentially suffering through difficult situations twice, once in your imagination and once in reality if they actually occur. Social anxiety is another common form, where the perceived threat is judgment or rejection from other people. If you've ever felt your face flush and your mind go blank when all eyes turn to you, you've experienced social anxiety. Your alarm system perceives social scrutiny as a genuine threat to your survival, even though intellectually you know it's not. Why do some people experience more anxiety than others? The answer is complex. Genetics play a role. Some people are born with a more sensitive alarm system. Early life experiences matter too. If you grew up in an environment where you felt unsafe or unpredictable, your brain learned to be hypervigilant. Traumatic experiences can rewire your threat detection system, making it overreactive. But here's what's really important. Regardless of why you experience anxiety, you can change how you respond to it. Your brain has a quality called neuroplasticity, which means it can form new neural pathways throughout your life. Every time you respond differently to anxiety, you're literally rewiring your brain. The techniques we'll explore in this audiobook take advantage of this neuroplasticity to help you build new, healthier patterns. Let me introduce you to the anxiety cycle, because understanding this cycle is the first step to breaking it. It starts with a trigger, something that your brain perceives as threatening. This could be anything: a social situation, a deadline, a physical sensation, even a random thought. The trigger activates your alarm system, which creates physical sensations: racing heart, tight chest, shallow breathing, sweaty palms. Your thinking brain notices these physical sensations and interprets them as confirmation that something is wrong. This interpretation creates anxious thoughts. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if something terrible happens? These anxious thoughts intensify the physical sensations, which generates more anxious thoughts, which intensifies the physical sensations even more. Before you know it, you're caught in a spiral of escalating anxiety. And if this happens repeatedly, your brain starts associating certain situations with danger, which makes you want to avoid those situations. Avoidance provides temporary relief, which reinforces the behavior, making your world smaller and smaller. But here's where hope enters the picture. Every step of this cycle is a point where you can intervene. You can change how you respond to triggers. You can calm the physical sensations. You can reframe the anxious thoughts. You can choose not to avoid. Each of these interventions breaks the cycle and gives you back control. Think about anxiety like a fire alarm that goes off when you burn toast. The alarm is doing its job, but it's overreacting to the situation. You don't need to evacuate the building. You just need to open a window and wave away the smoke. Similarly, when your anxiety alarm goes off, you don't need to panic or avoid. You just need to acknowledge it, understand it, and respond appropriately. This is what we call developing anxiety awareness. Instead of being swept away by anxiety, you learn to observe it with curiosity rather than fear. You might notice, okay, my heart is racing. That's adrenaline. My chest feels tight. That's muscle tension from stress. My mind is racing. That's my brain trying to predict and control the future. When you can observe anxiety objectively, you create space between you and the anxiety. You're no longer defined by it. You become the person experiencing anxiety, not an anxious person. This distinction might seem subtle, but it's transformative. Let me share one more story. James was a businessman who traveled frequently for work. He loved his job, but had developed intense anxiety about flying. Every time he boarded a plane, he was convinced it would crash. He'd grip the armrests, watch the flight attendants for signs of concern, and feel nauseated throughout the flight. James's anxiety wasn't really about flying. It was about control. On the ground, he felt in control of his environment. In the air, he had to surrender that control completely. His mind interpreted this lack of control as danger, and anxiety was the result. Through therapy, James learned to reframe his experience. Instead of trying to control the uncontrollable, he practiced accepting uncertainty. He learned that anxiety was just a feeling, not a prediction of disaster. He started using breathing techniques during flights, which we'll explore in detail later. Most importantly, he stopped avoiding flying, which had been reinforcing his fear. Today, James still experiences some nervousness when flying, but it no longer controls him. He acknowledges it, uses his techniques to manage it, and focuses on the reason he's traveling rather than the fear of the flight. The key insight from James's story applies to all anxiety. You don't have to eliminate anxiety completely to live a full, rich life. The goal isn't to never feel anxious. The goal is to prevent anxiety from making your decisions for you. Anxiety will always be part of human experience. There will always be uncertainty, challenges, and situations that activate your alarm system. But you can choose how much power you give it. You can learn to feel anxiety without being consumed by it, to acknowledge fear without letting it stop you, and to experience discomfort without interpreting it as disaster. This is mental strength. It's not the absence of anxiety. It's the ability to move forward despite it. It's the courage to face uncertainty, the wisdom to distinguish between real and imagined threats, and the self-compassion to be gentle with yourself when you struggle. As we move through the remaining chapters, every technique, every strategy, every insight builds on this foundation. Anxiety is information, not instruction. It's a signal, not a sentence. And now that you understand what it is and where it comes from, you're ready to learn how to manage it effectively. Remember, your brain created anxiety to protect you. That same brain can learn new ways to keep you safe without generating unnecessary fear. You have more control than you think, more resilience than you know, and more potential for peace than you've yet experienced. Let's discover that potential together. Chapter 2. The Breath of Calm. Mastering your body's reset button. There's a single tool you carry with you every moment of every day that can instantly begin to calm your nervous system, reduce anxiety, and bring you back to the present moment. You don't need any equipment, you don't need special training, and you can use it anywhere, anytime. That tool is your breath. I know what you might be thinking. Breathing? I've heard about breathing exercises before. They seem too simple to actually work. I understand that skepticism. In a world looking for complex solutions, it's hard to believe that something as simple as breathing differently could have profound effects on anxiety. But the science is clear, and the results speak for themselves. Let me tell you about Rachel. She was a nurse working in a busy emergency room, dealing with high-stress situations every single shift. She'd come home so wound up that she couldn't sleep, couldn't relax, couldn't even enjoy time with her family. Her doctor suggested breathing exercises, and Rachel almost laughed. How could breathing help when she was dealing with life-and-death situations at work? But she tried it anyway, and within 2 weeks, everything changed. She started doing just 5 minutes of focused breathing before her shift, during her breaks, and before bed. The constant tension in her shoulders eased. She slept better. She stopped snapping at her family. The work itself hadn't changed, but her body's response to stress had completely transformed. So what's actually happening when you practice controlled breathing? When you're anxious, your breathing automatically becomes shallow and rapid. You breathe from your chest instead of your diaphragm, taking quick, incomplete breaths. This type of breathing signals to your brain that you're in danger, which activates the stress response even more. It's a feedback loop. Anxiety causes shallow breathing, and shallow breathing increases anxiety. But this loop works both ways. When you deliberately slow down and deepen your breathing, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural calming mechanism. You literally flip a biological switch from fight or flight to rest and digest. Your heart rate slows down. Your blood pressure decreases. Stress hormones decrease. Your mind clears. This isn't just feel-good philosophy. This is measurable biology. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you're increasing the activity of the vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem through your chest and abdomen. This nerve is like a communication highway between your brain and your body, and when it's activated, it sends calming signals throughout your entire system. Let's start with the most fundamental breathing technique, one that you can use right now and will serve as the foundation for everything else. It's called diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. Here's how it works. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. As you breathe in through your nose, you want the hand on your belly to rise while the hand on your chest stays relatively still. This means you're breathing deeply into your diaphragm, filling your lungs completely. Then breathe out slowly through your mouth, feeling your belly fall. Try it now. Breathe in for a count of 4, feeling your belly expand. Hold for a count of 1. Then breathe out for a count of 6, feeling your belly contract. The exhale is longer than the inhale, and this is important. Longer exhales specifically activate your calming response. Do this for just 5 breaths, and you'll already notice a difference. Your mind becomes a little clearer. The tight feeling in your chest eases slightly. You feel a bit more grounded in your body. This is your body's natural relaxation response kicking in. Now let's explore a technique that's incredibly effective for managing acute anxiety. Those moments when your anxiety suddenly spikes and you need immediate relief. It's called the 4-7-8 breath, and it was developed by Dr. Andrew while based on ancient yogic breathing practices. Here's the pattern. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. Hold your breath for 7 counts. Then exhale completely through your mouth for 8 counts, making a whooshing sound as you breathe out. Repeat this cycle 4 times. This technique is powerful because the breath retention and extended exhale force your body to slow down. You simply can't maintain high anxiety while doing this breathing pattern. Try it the next time you're lying awake at night with racing thoughts, or before a stressful meeting, or when you feel a panic attack coming on. It acts like a circuit breaker for anxiety. Let me share another technique that's particularly useful throughout the day, especially if you're dealing with chronic, low-level anxiety. It's called box breathing, and it's used by Navy SEALs to stay calm under extreme pressure. Visualize a box in your mind. As you breathe in for 4 counts, trace the first side of the box. Hold for 4 counts, tracing the second side. Exhale for 4 counts, tracing the third side. Hold again for 4 counts, tracing the final side back to where you started. Repeat this for several minutes. What makes box breathing so effective is its simplicity and symmetry. The equal counts give your mind something to focus on, which interrupts anxious thoughts. The extended breath forces you to be present, and the overall rhythm entrains your nervous system toward calm. David, a trial lawyer, used box breathing before entering the courtroom. He'd spend 5 minutes in his car doing this practice, and he said it was like putting on armor. He still felt alert and ready, but the jittery nervousness was gone. He could think clearly and respond confidently instead of reacting from anxiety. Now, I want to address something important. When you first start practicing these breathing techniques, you might actually feel more anxious. This is normal and temporary. If you've been breathing shallowly for months or years, suddenly breathing deeply might feel strange or even uncomfortable. Your body isn't used to it. Some people even experience lightheadedness or tingling. If this happens, don't worry and don't stop practicing. Just slow down. Do fazer repetições. Breathe less deeply at first. Your body needs time to adapt to this new pattern. Within a few days or weeks, deep breathing will start to feel natural and comfortable, and the calming effects will become much stronger. There's another powerful breathing practice I want to teach you. It's called alternate nostril breathing, and while it might seem unusual at first, it's remarkably effective for balancing your nervous system and quieting mental chatter. Here's how you do it. Sit comfortably and use your right thumb to close your right nostril. Breathe in slowly through your left nostril. At the top of the inhale, close your left nostril with your ring finger and release your right nostril. Breathe out through your right nostril. Then breathe in through your right nostril, close it, and breathe out through your left nostril. That's one complete cycle. Continue this alternating pattern for 5 to 10 minutes. The practice requires enough concentration that your anxious thoughts naturally quiet down, and the balanced breathing pattern creates a sense of equilibrium in your nervous system. Many people report that this technique is especially helpful for insomnia and racing thoughts at night. Let me tell you about Maria, a graduate student who struggled with test anxiety so severe that she'd feel nauseated before exams. She started practicing alternate nostril breathing for 10 minutes each morning and again before studying. After 2 weeks, something shifted. Her mind felt clearer during study sessions. She could recall information more easily. And on test day, while she still felt some nervousness, it was manageable rather than debilitating. She went from failing grades to B's and A's, not because she became smarter, but because she could finally access the knowledge she already had. Breathing exercises are most effective when practiced regularly, not just during moments of high anxiety. Think of it like building muscle at the gym. If you only lift weights when you're in a crisis, it won't help much. But if you train consistently, you build strength that's there when you need it. I recommend establishing a daily breathing practice. It doesn't have to be long. Even 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes before bed can create significant changes over time. This consistent practice trains your nervous system to default to calm instead of defaulting to anxiety. Here's a practical schedule you might follow. Morning, right after waking up, do 5 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing or box breathing. This sets a calm tone for your day. Midday, perhaps during lunch or a break, do 3 minutes of any breathing technique that appeals to you. This breaks the accumulation of stress during the day. Evening, before bed, do 10 minutes of 4-7-8 breathing or alternate nostril breathing. This helps you transition into restful sleep. Beyond these scheduled practices, use breathing techniques strategically throughout your day. When you're stuck in traffic and feel frustration rising, do a few rounds of box breathing. When you're about to have a difficult conversation, take 2 minutes for diaphragmatic breathing. When you notice your jaw clenching or your shoulders tensing, pause and take 3 deep belly breaths. Over time, this becomes automatic. Your brain learns that stress is a signal to breathe deeply. Instead of spiraling into anxiety, you have a well-worn pathway to calm. This is what we mean by building mental strength, creating automatic responses that serve you rather than sabotage you. There's also something called breath awareness meditation, which is slightly different from breathing exercises. Instead of controlling your breath, you simply observe it. Notice the cool air entering your nostrils, the rise and fall of your chest and belly, the pause between inhale and exhale, the warmth of the air leaving your body. When your mind wanders to anxious thoughts, and it will gently bring your attention back to your breath without judgment. You're not trying to empty your mind or achieve some special state. You're just practicing the skill of noticing when your attention drifts and bringing it back. This simple practice strengthens your ability to redirect your mind away from anxiety spirals. I want to emphasize something crucial. Breathing techniques are not a cure-all, and they won't eliminate anxiety entirely. But they give you a tool, a way to intervene in the anxiety cycle. They give you back a measure of control when anxiety makes you feel powerless. The breath is always with you. No matter where you are, what's happening, or how anxious you feel, you can pause and take 3 deep breaths. That simple action can be the difference between being swept away by anxiety and staying grounded in yourself. Think of your breath as an anchor. When thoughts are racing, when emotions are overwhelming, when the world feels chaotic, your breath keeps you tethered to the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future, worrying about what might happen. Depression lives in the past, ruminating about what had happened. Your breath exists only now, in this moment, and when you focus on it, you naturally come back to the present, which is the only place where you have actual power to act and change. As you practice these techniques over the coming days and weeks, be patient with yourself. Some days the breathing will feel easy and immediately calming. Other days it will feel difficult and you'll wonder if it's working. Keep practicing anyway. The benefits are cumulative. Each breath you take with intention is rewiring your nervous system toward resilience. Before we move to the next chapter, I want to give you one final technique that's particularly useful for insomnia. It's called 4-7-8 breathing, done while progressively relaxing your body. As you lie in bed, start with your feet. Do 1 cycle of 4-7-8 breathing while consciously relaxing all the muscles in your feet. Then move to your calves, doing another breathing cycle while letting them relax completely. Continue moving up through your body. Thighs, hips, abdomen, chest, hands, arms, shoulders, neck, jaw, and face. By the time you reach your head, you'll likely be deeply relaxed and ready for sleep. Remember, your body wants to be calm. It wants to rest and heal. Anxiety is the exception, not the rule. When you give your body the signal to relax through conscious breathing, you're simply reminding it of its natural state. You're not creating something new. You're returning to something innate. So right now, before we move forward, take 3 deep belly breaths. Feel your body respond. Notice how your shoulders drop slightly, how your jaw unclenches, how your mind clears just a bit. This power is always available to you. This peace is always just a few breaths away. Chapter 3. Taming the Thought Storm. Rewriting your mental patterns. Your thoughts create your reality. Not the actual objective reality around you, but your experience reality. How you feel about what's happening, what meaning you assign to events, and ultimately how you respond to life's challenges. This is both the bad news and the good news. The bad news is that if your thoughts are predominantly negative, anxious, and catastrophic, you'll experience life through that dark lens. The good news is that you can change your thoughts, which means you can change your experience. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She was convinced that she was about to be fired from her job. Every time her manager asked to speak with her, her mind immediately jumped to termination. When she made a small mistake, she interpreted it as proof that she was incompetent. When she didn't receive immediate praise, she assumed her boss was disappointed. She lived in constant fear of losing her job. The reality? Jennifer was actually one of the top performers on her team. Her manager had no intention of firing her. But Jennifer's anxious thoughts created a reality where she experienced all the stress and misery of being fired without it actually happening. She was suffering needlessly because of the stories her mind was telling her. This is what cognitive behavioral therapy calls cognitive distortions, systematic errors in thinking that generate and maintain anxiety. Everyone experiences these distortions, but anxious people experience them more frequently and more intensely. The first step in taming the thought storm is learning to recognize these patterns in yourself. Let's explore the most common cognitive distortions. First is catastrophizing, which is exactly what it sounds like, immediately jumping to the worst possible outcome. Your boss wants to meet with you, and your mind screams, "I'm getting fired." You feel a pain in your chest, and you think, "I'm having a heart attack." Your partner seems quiet, and you conclude they're going to leave me. Catastrophizing takes a small seed of uncertainty and grows it into a full-blown disaster in seconds. Your mind skips over all the more likely, benign explanations and goes straight to catastrophe. This pattern keeps you in a constant state of high alert, exhausting your nervous system. The second distortion is called mind reading. This is when you're convinced you know what others are thinking about you, and it's always negative. Someone doesn't smile at you, and you think they hate me. A friend doesn't respond to your text immediately, and you decide they don't want to be friends anymore. Your colleague seems distracted during your presentation, and you assume they think I'm incompetent. The truth is, you have no idea what's actually happening in someone else's mind. Maybe they didn't smile because they just received bad news. Maybe they didn't respond because they're busy. Maybe your colleague was distracted because they're worried about their own problems. But mind reading assigns meaning without evidence, and that meaning is always anxiety-provoking. Then there's black and white thinking, also called all-or-nothing thinking. With this distortion, everything is either perfect or a complete failure. You're either loved by everyone or rejected by all. You're either completely successful or a total loser. There's no middle ground, no nuance, no room for the messiness of real life. Now that you can recognize these patterns, the next step is learning to challenge them. This doesn't mean positive thinking or replacing negative thoughts with affirmations. It means examining your thoughts objectively, like a scientist testing a hypothesis. Here's a powerful technique called the thought record. When you notice an anxious thought, write it down. Then ask yourself several questions. What evidence do I have that this thought is true? Not feelings or assumptions, but actual evidence. If you think, my boss is going to fire me, what concrete evidence supports this? Did they tell you this? Did they give you a formal warning? Or are you basing this on a feeling? What evidence do I have that this thought might not be true? Jennifer, who we met earlier, realized that her boss had recently given her positive feedback, assigned her important projects, and never expressed dissatisfaction. This was strong evidence against her fear of being fired. Is there another way to interpret this situation? Most situations have multiple possible explanations. If your friend seems distant, maybe they're dealing with personal problems, or they're stressed about work, or they're feeling unwell. These alternative explanations are often more accurate than your anxious assumption. What would I tell a friend who had this thought? We're often much more compassionate and rational with others than with ourselves. If your friend told you they were catastrophizing about a small mistake, what would you say? Offer yourself that same kindness and perspective. What's the worst that could actually happen, and could I handle it? This question strips away the vague sense of impending doom and forces you to be specific. What's the actual worst-case scenario? And if it happened, what would you do? Usually, you'll realize that even the worst case is survivable and manageable. Sandra used thought diffusion for her social anxiety. Every time she walked into a party, her mind would scream, "Everyone is judging you. You're going to say something stupid." Instead of believing these thoughts, she started saying to herself, There's my anxious brain again, telling me its stories. She imagined her anxiety as a noisy parrot sitting on her shoulder, squawking warnings. This imagery helped her recognize that these thoughts were just noise, not truth. Now let's talk about rumination, which is one of the most damaging thought patterns for anxiety. Rumination is when you replay the same thoughts over and over, analyzing every detail, trying to figure out what went wrong or what might go wrong. It feels productive because you're thinking deeply about your problems, but it's actually keeping you stuck. Imagine you said something awkward at a party. Healthy processing would be thinking, that was uncomfortable, but everyone says awkward things sometimes. I'll learn from it and move on. Rumination is replaying the moment 50 times, analyzing everyone's facial expressions, imagining what they must be thinking about you now, wondering if you should apologize or explain, and feeling increasing shame and anxiety with each replay. Rumination creates the illusion of control. Your brain thinks that if it just analyzes the situation enough, it can prevent future problems or fix past mistakes. But rumination doesn't solve problems. It deepens anxiety. It's like trying to get somewhere by running on a treadmill. Lots of effort, no progress. When you catch yourself ruminating, you need to interrupt the pattern. Here's a technique that works. Set aside a specific worry time each day, maybe 15 minutes in the afternoon. When you notice yourself starting to ruminate, tell yourself, I'll think about this during my worry time. Then deliberately redirect your attention to something else, your breath, your senses, a task at hand. When your designated worry time arrives, sit down and actually think about your concerns. Often, you'll find that the issues that seemed so urgent earlier in the day now seem less pressing. If something still needs attention, you can problem solve during this time. But you're doing it intentionally, not compulsively. Jake, a financial analyst, was a chronic ruminator. He'd wake up at 3 in the morning replaying work conversations, questioning his decisions, worrying about future scenarios. This pattern was destroying his sleep and his mental health. When he implemented the worry time technique, something unexpected happened. Most of his middle-of-the-night worries never made it to his afternoon worry time because they weren't actually important. They were just anxiety creating noise. Another powerful tool for managing anxious thoughts is mindful awareness. This is different from challenging thoughts or defusing from them. With mindful awareness, you simply observe your thoughts without judgment, engagement, or effort to change them. Imagine you're sitting by a river, watching leaves float by. Each leaf is a thought. You notice the leaf, observe it as it passes, and watch it float away downstream. You don't grab the leaves, you don't judge them as good or bad, and you don't follow them downstream. You just watch. This practice trains your brain to understand that thoughts are temporary mental events. They arise, exist for a moment, and pass away. You don't have to believe them, react to them, or be controlled by them. An anxious thought can float through your mind without triggering the entire anxiety cascade. This takes practice, especially at first. Your mind will try to pull you into the story of each thought. You'll find yourself following the leaf downstream, engaging with the anxious narrative before you realize what happened. That's okay. When you notice you've been pulled in, simply return to observing. This noticing and returning is the practice. You're strengthening your mental muscles with each repetition. Let me introduce you to the concept of thought habits. Just like you might have a habit of checking your phone first thing in the morning, you have habitual thought patterns. For anxious people, the thought habit is often, what could go wrong? How am I in danger? What should I worry about? Your brain asks these questions automatically, constantly scanning for threats. And here's the thing about questions. Your brain always tries to answer them. If you're constantly asking what could go wrong, your brain will helpfully generate dozens of possible catastrophes. You're programming yourself for anxiety. But you can change the questions you habitually ask. Instead of what could go wrong, you can train yourself to ask what could go right. What's already okay? What can I appreciate right now? These questions direct your attention toward different information, creating different emotional states. This isn't about ignoring real problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about balancing your perspective. Anxious thinking is biased toward the negative. You're counteracting that bias, not creating an opposite one. Think of anxiety like a wave in the ocean. If you stand rigid and fight against the wave, it will knock you over. But if you dive through it or ride with it, you emerge on the other side unharmed. Acceptance is diving through the wave instead of fighting it. Let me share one final technique for this chapter. It's called the worry tree, and it helps you determine whether an anxious thought requires action or acceptance. When an anxious thought arises, ask yourself, is this about something happening right now or something that might happen in the future? If it's about the future, ask, do I have any control over this outcome? If you don't have control, the appropriate response is acceptance and letting go. If you do have control, ask, can I do something about it right now? If yes, do it. If no, schedule a time to address it and then let it go. This tree helps you distinguish between productive concern, which leads to effective action, and unproductive worry, which just spins your wheels. Most anxiety falls into the category of things we either can't control or can't act on right now. The worry tree makes this clear, giving you permission to let go. Robert used the worry tree for his financial anxiety. He constantly worried about money, but the worry was vague and overwhelming. When he applied the worry tree, he realized some worries required action, updating his resume, creating a budget, cutting certain expenses. He did these things. Other worries were about possibilities he couldn't control. What if I lose my job? What if there's an economic crash? These he consciously decided to release. The worry tree transformed his generalized anxiety into specific, manageable actions and conscious acceptance of uncertainty. Your thoughts are powerful, but they're not always accurate. Your anxious mind is trying to protect you, but it's often overprotective, seeing danger where none exists. Learning to recognize thought patterns, challenge cognitive distortions, defuse from anxious thoughts, interrupt rumination, and accept uncertainty. These skills give you back control of your mental landscape. This is mental freedom, not the absence of anxious thoughts, but the ability to have them without being controlled by them. And this freedom is available to you, starting right now, with the next anxious thought that arises. Chapter 4. The Power of Presence, Living in the Now. Where's your mind right now? Are you fully here, listening to these words? Or is part of your attention somewhere else? Replaying something from yesterday, planning something for tomorrow, worrying about what might happen next week. If your mind is wandering, you're not alone. Research suggests that people spend almost half their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're currently doing. And this mind wandering, particularly when it drifts toward worries and regrets, is strongly linked to unhappiness and anxiety. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Most of your anxiety doesn't exist in the present moment. Think about it. When you're fully engaged in what's happening right now, really tasting your food, truly listening to a friend, completely absorbed in a task, there's no room for anxiety. Anxiety requires you to leave the present and travel mentally to the future or the past. Let me introduce you to Marcus. He was a photographer who spent years anxious and unhappy, despite having a career he'd always dreamed of. While photographing beautiful landscapes, his mind was elsewhere, worried about whether the photos would turn out, stressed about upcoming deadlines, replaying difficult client conversations, planning his next project. He was physically present in stunning locations, but mentally absent, lost in thought. Everything changed when Marcus discovered mindfulness. He started bringing his full attention to the present moment, the quality of light, the sound of wind, the feeling of his camera in his hands. Not only did his anxiety decrease dramatically, but his photography actually improved. He was finally experiencing his life instead of just thinking about it. So what exactly is mindfulness? It's the practice of bringing your full attention to the present moment with curiosity and without judgment. It's not about emptying your mind or achieving some special state of consciousness. It's simply about being where you are fully and completely. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary for anxious minds. Anxiety pulls you out of the present into imagined futures. Depression pulls you into ruminated pasts. The present moment, this breath, this sensation, this sound, is the only place where peace actually exists. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed in something you enjoyed. Maybe you were reading a great book, having an engaging conversation, playing with a child, creating art, or playing sports. In those moments, where was your anxiety? It disappeared, not because your circumstances changed, but because your attention was fully occupied by the present experience. The problem is that these moments of full presence are rare for most people. We've trained ourselves to be perpetually distracted, always thinking ahead, always multitasking, never quite here. Our minds are like television sets that constantly flip through channels, never staying with one program long enough to really experience it. Mindfulness is the practice of staying with one channel, one experience, one moment. And when your mind inevitably wanders, because it will, that's what minds do, you gently bring it back. No judgment, no frustration, just a gentle return to the present. Let's explore practical ways to cultivate this presence in daily life. The most fundamental practice is mindful breathing, which we touched on earlier. But now we're using breath awareness not to calm anxiety, but to anchor ourselves in the present moment. Another powerful practice is mindful observation. Choose an object, any object. It could be a flower, a piece of fruit, a stone, even your own hand. Spend 5 minutes really observing it, as if you've never seen anything like it before. Notice every detail, colors, textures, shapes, shadows, light. When your mind wanders to other thoughts, gently bring it back to observing. This practice trains your attention. Most of the time, you don't really see things. You just recognize them and move on. That's a tree. That's a car. That's a person. You're living in labels and concepts rather than direct experience. Mindful observation brings you back to actually seeing, which is always a present moment activity. Lisa, a lawyer who described herself as living in her head, started practicing mindful observation with her morning coffee. Instead of drinking it while checking her phone and mentally planning her day, she spent 5 minutes just experiencing the coffee. The warmth of the cup, the aroma, the complex flavors, the sensation of swallowing. This simple practice became an anchor point in her chaotic days, a moment of peace she could count on. Let's talk about mindful listening, which is particularly important for relationships. How often do you truly listen when someone is speaking? Or are you planning your response, judging what they're saying, or thinking about something else entirely? Mindful listening means giving someone your complete attention. You notice the sound of their voice, their words, their tone, their body language. When your mind wanders to your own thoughts and opinions, you notice this and gently return to listening. You're not trying to fix, advise, or respond. You're just receiving what they're offering. This kind of listening is a gift, both to the other person and to yourself. They feel truly heard, which deepens connection. And you experience less anxiety in relationships because you're not caught up in your own head, worrying about what to say or how you're being perceived. David, who struggled with social anxiety, found mindful listening transformative. Instead of spending conversations anxiously monitoring himself, he focused completely on the other person. Paradoxically, his conversations became more natural and engaging. He was finally present with people instead of trapped in anxious self-consciousness. Now let's explore one of the most powerful mindfulness practices for anxiety, the body scan. This involves systematically bringing attention to different parts of your body, noticing sensations without trying to change them. Lie down or sit comfortably. Close your eyes if you'd like. Bring your attention to your feet. Notice any sensations, warmth, coolness, tingling, pressure, or perhaps no particular sensation at all. Spend 30 seconds just observing. Then move your attention to your ankles, then your lower legs, continuing slowly up through your entire body. Knees, thighs, hips, lower back, abdomen, chest, fingers, hands, arms, shoulders, neck, jaw, face, and finally the top of your head. The body scan does several things. First, it brings you into your body rather than being lost in your head. Anxiety is largely a mental phenomenon, and moving awareness in a physical sensation grounds you. Second, It teaches you to observe discomfort without immediately reacting to it. You notice tension in your shoulders, but don't have to fix it immediately. You feel butterflies in your stomach, but don't have to make them go away. This skill, observing discomfort without reacting, is fundamental to managing anxiety. Third, the body scan often reveals where you're holding stress. You might discover that you habitually clench your jaw, tighten your shoulders, or hold your breath without realizing it. This awareness allows you to consciously release that tension. Elena, a busy mother of 3, started doing a 10-minute body scan each night before sleep. She discovered she was carrying enormous tension in her body that she'd never consciously noticed. As she practiced regularly, her chronic headaches disappeared, her sleep improved, and her overall anxiety levels dropped significantly. Let's discuss mindful eating, which is a wonderful way to practice presence and also improve your relationship with food. Most people eat while doing something else, watching television, scrolling through phones, working at their desks. You're eating, but you're not tasting. Food goes in, but you barely experience it. Mindful eating means giving your full attention to the experience of eating. Notice the appearance of your food, its aroma, the textures, the flavors that unfold as you chew slowly. Put your fork down between bites. Notice the sensation of hunger decreasing and satisfaction arising. Stop when you're comfortably full rather than overstuffed. This practice naturally slows you down, helps you eat less, and increases your enjoyment of food. But more than that, it's a several times daily opportunity to practice being present. If you eat mindfully even once a day, you're giving yourself regular mindfulness training. Kevin used mindful eating to manage his stress-related overeating. Instead of mindlessly consuming large amounts of food while watching television, he started eating one meal a day at the table without distractions. This single change helped him lose weight, but more importantly, he discovered that he'd been using food to avoid feeling his emotions. When he was present with his food, he was also present with himself, and he could address his anxiety instead of numbing it. There's a practice called noting that helps develop this awareness. Throughout your day, silently note what your mind is doing. If you're thinking about the past, note remembering. If you're thinking about the future, note planning or worrying. If you're judging something, note judging. If you're feeling an emotion, note what it is: anxiety, happiness, frustration. This practice creates awareness of your mental habits. You start to see how often your mind leaves the present, where it typically goes, and what triggers these departures. This awareness itself begins to create change. You can't modify a habit you're not aware of. Maria used noting to understand her anxiety patterns. She discovered that every morning while getting ready for work, her mind would jump to worrying about upcoming deadlines. Just naming this pattern, worrying about work, helped her see it as a habit rather than necessary preparation. She could then consciously choose to bring her attention back to her morning routine, starting her day with presence instead of anxiety. Let's talk about something called informal mindfulness practice. This is bringing mindful awareness to activities you already do every day. Taking a shower, washing dishes, brushing your teeth, driving, making your bed. Any routine activity can become a mindfulness practice. Instead of doing these activities on autopilot while your mind churns with thoughts, do them with full attention. Feel the water on your skin. Notice the scent of the soap. Hear the sound of water flowing. Feel the dishes in your hands. Notice the temperature of the water. Observe the soap bubbles forming. Engage your senses fully in whatever you're doing. This transforms mundane activities into opportunities for peace and presence. You're not adding anything to your schedule. You're simply changing how you relate to things you already do. Over time, this builds a baseline of mindfulness that carries into all areas of your life. One of the most profound aspects of mindfulness is that it changes your relationship with difficult emotions and sensations. Instead of automatically trying to push away discomfort, you learn to observe it with curiosity. Oh, there's anxiety. What do I feel in my body? What does it actually feel like? Is it constant or does it pulse? Does it have a temperature, a texture? This might seem counterintuitive. Why would you want to pay attention to uncomfortable feelings? Because resistance amplifies discomfort. When you feel anxiety and immediately think, this is terrible, I need to make this stop, something is wrong, you create a second layer of suffering on top of the original anxiety. You're now anxious about being anxious. But when you bring mindful awareness to anxiety, observing it without judgment, noticing its characteristics, watching it arise and shift and eventually pass, something remarkable happens. The anxiety loses its power to terrify you. It becomes just a physical sensation and some thoughts, uncomfortable but not dangerous, temporary rather than permanent. This is radical acceptance. You're not liking the anxiety or wanting it. You're simply acknowledging that it's present right now and allowing it to be here without fighting it. And paradoxically, this acceptance often causes the anxiety to diminish much faster than fighting it does. Mindfulness doesn't eliminate anxiety completely, but it fundamentally changes your relationship with it. Anxiety becomes something you're aware of rather than something you're identified with. It becomes an experience you're having rather than who you are. And in the spaciousness of present moment awareness, even anxiety feels different, less solid, less overwhelming, less permanent. As you practice presence in your daily life, be patient with yourself. Your mind will wander thousands of times. That's not failure. That's the practice. The practice isn't staying present forever. It's noticing when you've drifted and gently returning. Each return strengthens your attention muscles and builds your capacity for presence. Start small. Choose one activity each day to do mindfully. Maybe it's your morning shower, your first cup of coffee, or a short walk. Give it your complete attention. Then gradually expand. Add more mindful moments throughout your day. Over time, presence becomes your default state instead of something you have to remember to do. The present moment is always here, always available, always offering you a refuge from anxious thoughts. Right now, in this moment, are you okay? Usually, the answer is yes. It's the thoughts about what might happen or what did happen that creates suffering, not this moment itself. Come back to now, again and again and again. This is the path to peace. Chapter 5. Sleep, the ultimate healer, reclaiming your nights. Sleep and anxiety have a complicated relationship. Anxiety disrupts sleep, and poor sleep amplifies anxiety. It's a vicious cycle that millions of people are trapped in, lying awake night after night, exhausted but unable to rest, watching the clock and feeling increasingly desperate as the hours tick by. Let me tell you about Rachel. For 3 years, she dreaded bedtime. The moment she turned off the lights, her mind would come alive with worries. She'd replay awkward moments from the day, stress about tomorrow's responsibilities, and catastrophize about distant future scenarios. She'd lie there for hours, trying desperately to fall asleep, which only made sleep more elusive. By morning, she was exhausted, irritable, and anxious about facing the day. And the cycle would begin again. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know that you can break this cycle. Good sleep is possible, even if you've struggled for years. But it requires understanding the relationship between sleep and anxiety and implementing specific strategies that work with your biology instead of against it. First, let's understand why anxiety disrupts sleep. Sleep requires a feeling of safety. Your brain needs to believe that it's okay to become unconscious, that you're not in danger. But anxiety is fundamentally about perceiving threat. When your alarm system is activated, your brain thinks danger. This is not the time to sleep. Stay alert. The irony is that lying in bed, doing nothing creates space for anxious thoughts to flourish. During the day, you're occupied with tasks, conversations, and activities that keep your mind engaged. But at night, in the quiet and darkness, there's nothing to distract you from your thoughts. So your mind fills the space with worries. This is compounded by the fact that your prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical part of your brain, becomes less active as you get tired. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your emotional alarm center, stays active. This means that at night, you have fewer mental resources to challenge anxious thoughts, making them seem more real and more urgent. So what's the solution? It begins with something called sleep hygiene, which is creating conditions that support good sleep. Let's start with the basics that make a tremendous difference. First, consistency. Your body has a circadian rhythm, an internal clock that regulates when you feel alert and when you feel sleepy. This clock thrives on consistency. Going to bed and waking up at roughly the same time every day, yes, even on weekends, helps regulate this clock. Your body learns when to release sleep-promoting hormones and when to release waking hormones. Second, your bedroom environment matters enormously. Your bedroom should be cool, dark, and quiet. Temperature is particularly important. Your core body temperature needs to drop slightly for sleep to occur, and a cool room facilitates this. Aim for around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Darkness is crucial because light, especially blue light from screens, signals to your brain that it's daytime. This suppresses melatonin, your sleep hormone. Use blackout curtains if outside light is an issue. Cover any LED lights from electronics. Even small amounts of light can disrupt sleep quality. Noise can repeatedly wake you throughout the night, even if you don't consciously remember it. If you can't eliminate noise, use earplugs, a white noise machine, or a fan to create consistent sound that masks disruptions. Now let's talk about what you do before bed. The hour before sleep is critical. This should be a wind-down period where you gradually transition from wakefulness to sleep readiness. But what do most people do? They're on their phones scrolling through social media, watching stimulating television, or working right up until they turn off the light. This doesn't work. You can't go from full alert mode to sleep mode instantly. You need a buffer period, a ritual that signals to your body and mind that it's time to prepare for sleep. Here's a wind-down routine that works. 1 hour before your target bedtime, dim the lights throughout your house. Bright lights signal daytime to your brain. Switch to lamps or install dimmer switches. Avoid screens during this hour. I know this is challenging, but it makes a profound difference. The blue light from phones, tablets, computers, and televisions suppresses melatonin. If you absolutely must use a screen, at least use blue light blocking glasses or apps that filter blue light. Instead of screens, engage in relaxing activities. Read a physical book or use an e-reader with a warm light setting. Take a warm bath or shower. The subsequent drop in body temperature when you get out promotes sleep. Do some gentle stretches or restorative yoga. Practice the breathing techniques we discussed earlier. Write in a journal, which we'll discuss more in a moment. Avoid stimulating or stressful activities. Don't check work email, have difficult conversations, or engage with upsetting news. This isn't avoidance. It's protecting your sleep, which is essential for your mental health. Daniel used to watch action movies in bed right before try to sleep. He couldn't understand why his mind raced afterward. When he switched to reading poetry during his wind-down hour, his sleep improved immediately. He was finally giving his nervous system permission to relax instead of constantly stimulating it. Let's address caffeine and alcohol, which are two of the biggest sleep disruptors. Caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours, which means that if you drink coffee at 4 p.m., half of that caffeine is still in your system at 10 p.m. Even if you fall asleep, caffeine reduces sleep quality and increases nighttime awakenings. If you struggle with sleep and anxiety, limit caffeine to the morning only and keep your intake moderate. Some people are more sensitive than others, so you might need to eliminate it entirely or stop even earlier in the day. Alcohol is tricky because it seems to help at first. It relaxes you and might help you fall asleep faster. But alcohol disrupts sleep architecture, preventing deep, restorative sleep and causing frequent awakenings in the second half of the night. You might sleep for 8 hours but wake up feeling unrest. And because alcohol affects anxiety levels, it creates a rebound effect that actually increases anxiety the next day. If you're using alcohol to cope with anxiety or help you sleep, you're creating a problematic cycle. Far better to use the techniques in this book to address anxiety directly and promote natural sleep. Now let's talk about what to do when you're lying in bed unable to sleep, which is the situation that causes the most distress for insomniacs. The worst thing you can do is lie there trying desperately to fall asleep. watching the clock, calculating how many hours of sleep you'll get if you fall asleep right now, and feeling increasingly anxious about not sleeping. This creates association between your bed and wakeful anxiety, which makes the problem worse. Your bed should be associated with sleep and relaxation, not with frustration and insomnia. So here's the rule. If you've been lying awake for more than 20 minutes, get up. Leave your bedroom. Go somewhere with dim lighting and do something quiet and relaxing. Read that boring book, listen to calming music, practice breathing exercises. When you feel genuinely sleepy again, return to bed. This might mean getting up multiple times in one night at first, which sounds counterproductive. But you're retraining your brain to associate bed with sleep, not with lying awake anxiously. Over time, this conditioning makes it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. Jennifer implemented this technique and said it was life-changing. Instead of lying there for hours feeling increasingly desperate, she'd get up, read for 20 minutes in a comfortable chair with a dim lamp, and return to bed when she felt drowsy. Within a month, she rarely needed to get up anymore because her brain had relearned that bed equals sleep. Let's address racing thoughts at night, which are probably the #1 complaint among anxious insomniacs. You're tired, you want to sleep, but your mind won't stop. It's planning, worrying, analyzing, creating scenarios, and jumping from topic to topic. Here's a technique that helps. Keep a notepad beside your bed. When thoughts arise, things you need to remember, problems to solve, worries about tomorrow, write them down briefly. This tells your brain, I've captured this, I don't need to keep thinking about it now. It's like closing browser tabs on a computer. Each note frees up mental space. For worries specifically, try this. Write down the worry, then write, I will think about this tomorrow at a specific time. This acknowledges the concern without engaging with it now. Remember, most things that feel urgent at 3 a.m. aren't actually urgent. They're just thoughts amplified by fatigue and darkness. After writing things down, use one of the breathing techniques from Chapter 2 or try a body scan. These practices give your mind something to focus on besides racing thoughts, and they activate your relaxation response. Alex kept a worry notebook beside his bed. When thoughts arose, he'd jot them down, sometimes just a word or two to capture the essence. He said it was like emptying his mind onto paper. Then he'd do 10 minutes of body scan meditation. This routine transformed his sleep within a week. Another powerful technique for sleep is something called sleep restriction therapy, which sounds counterintuitive but is highly effective for chronic insomnia. Here's how it works. You spend too much time in bed awake, which weakens the association between bed and sleep. So you deliberately restrict your time in bed to match how long you're actually sleeping. If you're currently spending 8 hours in bed, but only sleeping 5 hours, you limit yourself to 5.5 hours in bed. Yes, you'll be tired at first, but you'll fall asleep faster and sleep more efficiently because you've built up sleep pressure. Once you're sleeping well during that restricted window, you gradually add 15 to 30 minutes, slowly extending your sleep time. This technique essentially reboots your sleep system. It's challenging, and it's best done with professional guidance, but it has one of the highest success rates for treating insomnia. Let's talk about naps, which are controversial in the sleep world. For some people, a short nap can be refreshing and doesn't interfere with nighttime sleep. For others, especially those with insomnia, daytime naps reduce sleep pressure, making it harder to fall asleep at night. If you're struggling with sleep, my recommendation is to avoid naps for a few weeks and see if your nighttime sleep improves. If you must nap, keep it short, 20 minutes maximum, and do it before 3 p.m. Catherine was a chronic napper who couldn't figure out why she had insomnia. She'd nap for an hour or two in the afternoon, then wonder why she couldn't fall asleep until midnight. When she eliminated naps and pushed through the afternoon fatigue, her nighttime sleep consolidated and improved dramatically within 2 weeks. Now let's discuss a crucial but often overlooked aspect of sleep: your relationship with sleep itself. Many people with insomnia develop what's called sleep anxiety. They're anxious about not sleeping, which makes sleep even more elusive. They start dreading bedtime, worrying about whether they'll sleep, calculating how tired they'll be the next day. This anxiety about sleep becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You need to change your mindset about sleep. First, understand that one night of poor sleep, or even several nights, won't harm you. It's uncomfortable, but you'll survive. You've functioned on little sleep before, and you can do it again. The anxiety about not sleeping is often more damaging than the poor sleep itself. Second, let go of perfectionism about sleep. You don't need 8 perfect hours every night. Sleep needs vary by person and by night. Some nights you'll sleep well, some nights less well. This is normal. Fighting against this natural variation creates unnecessary stress. Third, trust your body. Your body knows how to sleep. You've been doing it since birth. The problem isn't that you've forgotten how to sleep. It's that anxiety and counterproductive habits are interfering with a natural process. As you implement these strategies, you're simply removing obstacles and allowing your natural sleep drive to work. Let's talk about supplements and medication, which many people turn to for sleep. Melatonin can be helpful for some people, especially for adjusting circadian rhythms after travel or shift work. But it's not a sleeping pill. It's a signal to your body that it's nighttime. Taking too much, most people take far more than necessary, or taking at the wrong time can actually worsen sleep. If you use melatonin, start with a very low dose, around 0.5 to 1 milligram. Take about an hour before your target bedtime. Magnesium is another supplement that some people find helpful. It has mild relaxing properties, and many people are deficient. Magnesium glycinate is the form most associated with better sleep and less likely to cause digestive upset. Herbal teas like chamomile, passion flower, or valerian root can be part of a relaxing bedtime routine. Their effects are generally mild, but the ritual itself, the warmth, the flavor, the act of sitting quietly, contributes to relaxation. As for prescription sleep medications, they have their place for short-term crisis situations, but they come with significant downsides: tolerance, needing increasing doses, dependence, next-day grogginess, and they don't produce natural sleep architecture. They sedate you rather than allowing natural sleep processes to occur. If you're currently using sleep medication, work with your doctor to address the underlying causes of your insomnia rather than relying on pills indefinitely. The techniques in this chapter: proper sleep hygiene, consistent schedule, wind-down routine, managing racing thoughts, changing your relationship with sleep, address the root causes of insomnia. They take more effort than popping a pill, but they create lasting change without side effects. Let me share a comprehensive evening routine that brings together everything we've discussed. This is what someone committed to excellent sleep might do. 8 p.m. Finish eating. Large meals close to bedtime can disrupt sleep. If you need a snack later, keep it light. 9 p.m. Begin dimming lights throughout the house. Turn off screens. No more phone, tablet, computer, or television. This is your wind-down hour beginning. 9:15 p.m. Take a warm bath or shower. Add Epsom salts or lavender if you enjoy them. Let yourself relax in the warmth. When you get out, your dropping body temperature will promote sleepiness. 9:45 p.m. Do some gentle stretching or restorative yoga poses. Nothing vigorous, just gentle movements that release tension from your body. 10 p.m. Sit quietly and do a brain dump in your journal. Write down anything on your mind: tasks for tomorrow, current worries, things you're grateful for. This clears your mental space. 10:15 p.m. Practice 10 minutes of deep breathing or body scan meditation. You're signaling to your nervous system that it's safe to rest. 10:30 p.m. Read a physical book in dim light until you feel genuinely sleepy. Not until a certain time, but until you notice the signs of sleepiness: heavy eyelids, yawning, losing your place on the page. Then lights out. If you're not asleep within 20 minutes, you get up and repeat the last steps: quiet reading, breathing, return when sleepy. 7 a.m. Wake up at the same time regardless of how you slept. This consistency strengthens your circadian rhythm. Get exposure to bright light as soon as possible. Go outside, or use a bright light if it's still dark. This signals to your brain that it's daytime, which helps you feel alert now and sleepy tonight. I know this routine seems elaborate. You don't have to follow it exactly, but I'm showing you what optimal sleep preparation looks like. Even implementing half of these elements will improve your sleep significantly. Here's something important to understand. Sleep and anxiety have a bidirectional relationship. Poor sleep increases anxiety, making you more reactive, more emotional, and less able to cope with stress. But anxiety also disrupts sleep, creating a vicious cycle. The good news is that this works in reverse too. When you improve your sleep, your anxiety decreases. And when you reduce your anxiety using the techniques throughout this book, your sleep naturally improves. This means you're not just working on sleep in isolation. Everything you're learning, breath work, thought management, mindfulness, directly supports better sleep. And better sleep gives you more resources to practice these techniques effectively. It's a virtuous cycle. Let me address one more thing. What if you've done everything right and you still have a bad night? It happens. Maybe you're dealing with stress, illness, or just random variation. Here's how to handle it. First, don't catastrophize. One bad night doesn't mean your insomnia is back permanently or that you failed. It's just one night. Sleep is variable, and that's normal. Second, resist the urge to make up for lost sleep by going to bed earlier the next night or napping the next day. Stick to your regular schedule. Your body will naturally sleep a bit deeper the next night to compensate. Third, practice self-compassion. You're tired, that's uncomfortable, but you'll get through the day. Be a little gentler with yourself. Maybe don't schedule super demanding tasks, but also trust that you're more capable than you think, even on less sleep. Fourth, don't let one bad night create anxiety about future nights. Last night was rough, but that doesn't mean tonight will be. Each night is fresh. I'm going to follow my routine and trust my body. Sleep is deeply connected to your sense of safety. When you feel safe, you sleep well. When you feel threatened, sleep becomes difficult. This is why all the anxiety management work you're doing matters so much for sleep. As you learn to calm your nervous system, challenge anxious thoughts, and create a sense of safety in your body and mind, sleep naturally becomes easier. Think of good sleep as both a foundation for mental health and a result of good mental health practices. You're building both simultaneously. Each night of good sleep gives you more resilience for the next day. Each day of practicing anxiety management makes sleep easier that night. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary, a place where you feel safe and peaceful. Your bedtime routine should be something you look forward to, a nurturing ritual that honors your need for rest. Sleep should not be a battle or a source of stress. It's your body's natural way of restoring and healing itself. As you implement these strategies, be patient. If you've had sleep problems for months or years, it might take several weeks to see significant improvement. Your body needs time to relearn healthy sleep patterns, but the improvement will come if you're consistent. And remember, the goal isn't perfect sleep every single night. The goal is to remove the obstacles to natural sleep, to create conditions that support rest, and to develop a healthy relationship with sleep where you trust your body and don't let anxiety dominate your nights. Sleep is one of the most powerful tools you have for managing anxiety and building mental strength. When you sleep well, everything else becomes easier. You think more clearly, regulate emotions better, and handle stress more effectively. Prioritizing sleep isn't selfish or lazy. It's one of the most important things you can do for your mental health. So tonight, start with one change. Maybe it's setting a consistent bedtime. Maybe it's turning off screens an hour before bed. Maybe it's practicing breathing exercises when you can't sleep. One change leads to another, and gradually, you build a sleep routine that actually works. Your body wants to sleep. Your brain needs to sleep. You deserve to sleep. With patience, consistency, and the right approach, you can reclaim your nights and wake up ready to face your days with strength and calm. Chapter 6. Movement as Medicine. Calming your body to quiet your mind. Your body and mind are not separate entities. They're intimately connected, constantly communicating through nerves, hormones, and feedback loops. When your body is tense, your mind interprets this as a signal that something is wrong, generating anxious thoughts. When your mind is anxious, your body responds with tension, rapid heartbeat, and stress hormones. It's a continuous loop. This means that one of the most effective ways to manage anxiety is through your body. When you move your body in specific ways, you can interrupt the anxiety cycle, discharge stress hormones, and signal to your brain that you're safe. Movement is medicine for anxiety. Let's understand the science. When you exercise, several things happen that directly combat anxiety. First, your body metabolizes excess stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are designed for short-term threats. They prepare you for immediate action. But in modern life, they often circulate in your system with no outlet. Exercise provides that outlet, burning through these chemicals the way nature intended. Second, exercise increases the production of endorphins, your body's natural mood elevators and pain relievers. These create a sense of well-being that counteracts anxiety. This is the famous runner's high, but you don't have to run marathons to experience it. Even moderate exercise triggers endorphin release. Third, exercise increases your body temperature, which has a calming effect on the central nervous system. It's similar to why a warm bath feels relaxing. The temperature increase followed by cooling down afterward promotes a sense of calm. Fourth, exercise requires focus on physical sensations, which naturally brings you into the present moment. When you're running, swimming, or doing yoga, you're aware of your breath, your muscles, your movement. This is mindfulness in action, pulling you out of anxious thoughts and into bodily experience. Fifth, regular exercise improves sleep quality, and as we discussed in the last chapter, good sleep is fundamental to managing anxiety. And perhaps most importantly, exercise builds confidence. When you challenge yourself physically and succeed, whether that's walking a mile, completing a yoga class, or lifting weights, you prove to yourself that you're capable. This sense of mastery transfers to other areas of life, making challenges seem less overwhelming. Now, what kind of exercise is best for anxiety? The truth is, the best exercise is the one you'll actually do consistently. But different types of movement affect anxiety in different ways. So let's explore your options. Aerobic exercise, activities that get your heart rate up and make you breathe harder, is particularly effective for anxiety. This includes walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, dancing, or any activity that increases your cardiovascular rate. Research shows that even moderate aerobic exercise, done regularly, can be as effective as medication for mild to moderate anxiety. The recommendation is to aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise most days of the week. Moderate means you're working hard enough that you're breathing heavily, but can still hold a conversation. You don't need to kill yourself at the gym. Consistency matters more than intensity. Walking is perhaps the most underrated form of exercise for anxiety. It's free, accessible to most people, requires no equipment or gym membership, and can be done almost anywhere. But don't underestimate its power. A brisk 30-minute walk can significantly reduce anxiety levels, clear your head, and improve your mood. The key is to walk with intention. This isn't a distracted walk while you scroll through your phone. This is mindful walking, where you pay attention to your body moving, your breath, your surroundings. Let your arms swing naturally. Notice how your feet feel making contact with the ground. Feel the air on your skin. Observe without judgment what you see around you. For anxiety, timing matters with exercise. Morning exercise can set a positive tone for your entire day. It wakes up your body and mind, increases energy levels, and creates a foundation of calm that can carry through the day. Many people find that morning exercise also helps them sleep better at night. Evening exercise can be helpful too, but timing is important. Vigorous exercise too close to bedtime can be stimulating and interfere with sleep. If you exercise in the evening, finish at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, and consider following it with gentle stretching or yoga to help your body transition towards sleep. Some people find that exercising when anxiety is high provides immediate relief, a way to burn off the excess adrenaline and nervous energy. This is completely valid. If you feel anxious, going for a run or doing jumping jacks or dancing to loud music can discharge that energy effectively. But here's what's most important. Don't wait until you're anxious to exercise. Regular, consistent exercise builds baseline resilience. Think of it like this. You don't only brush your teeth when you have a cavity. You brush daily to prevent cavities. Similarly, you exercise regularly to prevent anxiety from building up, not just to treat it when it's overwhelming. Now, let's address a common barrier. I don't have time to exercise. I understand. Life is busy. But here's the truth. You don't have time not to exercise. When anxiety is consuming your mental energy, creating tension in your body, disrupting your sleep, and affecting your productivity, you're losing far more time than the 30 minutes you'd spend exercising. And you don't need to find hour-long blocks. 3 10-minute walks throughout the day are almost as beneficial as one 30-minute walk. You could do squats and push-ups during commercials or work breaks. You can take the stairs instead of the elevator. You can park farther away and walk. Movement can be integrated into your existing life. Another barrier, I'm too tired to exercise. This seems logical. If you're exhausted, rest seems like the answer. But here's what's counterintuitive. Unless you're genuinely physically exhausted from hard labor, the tiredness you feel is often mental fatigue and stress, not physical tiredness. And movement actually increases energy levels. The endorphins, increased blood flow, and oxygen boost create alertness and vitality. Jennifer said she was too tired after work to exercise. She'd collapse on the couch and spend the evening in a fog of fatigue and low-level anxiety. When she forced herself to take a 20-minute walk right after work, despite feeling tired, she discovered her energy actually increased. By the time she got home, she felt more alive and less anxious. The movement energized rather than exhausted her. A third barrier, I don't like exercise. It's boring or uncomfortable. This is valid. Not everyone enjoys traditional exercise. The solution is finding movement you actually enjoy. Maybe it's dancing in your living room to music you love. Maybe it's gardening or playing with your kids. Maybe it's hiking in nature or swimming at the beach. Maybe it's martial arts or rock climbing or playing basketball with friends. The point isn't to punish yourself with exercise you hate. The point is to find joyful movement that happens to also reduce anxiety. When you enjoy what you're doing, consistency becomes natural instead of forced. Let's talk about exercise and panic attacks specifically. Many people with panic disorder become afraid of exercise because increased heart rate and heavy breathing mimic panic attack symptoms. They start avoiding physical activity out of fear that it will trigger a panic attack. This avoidance is counterproductive because it reinforces the fear. Here's a better approach. Start very gradually with gentle exercise. Go for a short, slow walk. As you exercise, notice the sensations, increased heart rate, heavier breathing, warmth. Remind yourself that these are normal, healthy responses to movement, not danger signals. Over time, your brain learns to distinguish between physical exertion and panic. You become familiar with what increased heart rate feels like during exercise, and you learn it's not dangerous. This actually reduces panic attacks because you're less frightened by the physical sensations when they occur in other contexts. There's also something called green exercise, physical activity in natural environments, which appears to have extra benefits for mental health beyond exercise alone. Walking in a park, hiking in the woods, or practicing yoga on the beach combines the anxiety-reducing effects of exercise with the calming influence of nature. Studies show that just 20 minutes in nature can lower cortisol levels and reduce anxiety. Something about natural environments, the trees, the sky, the sounds of birds and wind, creates a sense of peace and perspective that you can't quite get from a gym or urban environment. Let me give you a practical weekly exercise plan for anxiety management. Monday, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, brisk walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, or dancing. Push yourself to work moderately hard. Tuesday, 20 minutes of strength training or yoga. Focus on building physical strength and releasing tension. Wednesday, another 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. Try to do it outdoors if possible in a natural setting. Thursday, rest day or gentle stretching and light walking. Your body needs recovery time. Friday, 30 minutes of your favorite form of movement, whatever you most enjoy. This keeps exercise feeling like a reward rather than a chore. Saturday, 45 minutes to an hour of something active and fun. Hiking, playing sports, dancing, swimming. Make it social if possible. Sunday, gentle yoga or a long, leisurely walk. Focus on restoration and preparation for the week ahead. This is just a template. Adjust it based on your fitness level, schedule, and preferences. The important thing is consistency and variety. Different types of movement serve different purposes, and regular practice builds lasting resilience. One final piece of advice about exercise and anxiety. Pay attention to your inner dialogue during and after exercise. Are you being harsh and judgmental? I'm so slow. I'm out of shape. I should be better at this. This kind of self-criticism undermines the anxiety-reducing benefits of exercise. Instead, practice self-compassion. I'm moving my body. I'm taking care of myself. Every step is an act of self-care. I'm doing something positive for my mental health. This mindset shift amplifies the benefits of your physical efforts. Your body is not your enemy. It's not betraying you with anxiety. It's doing its best to protect you, even if the alarm system is oversensitive. When you move your body with kindness and consistency, you're communicating safety. You're telling your nervous system, we're okay. We're strong. We can handle challenges. And over time, your body responds. The tension eases. The constant alertness decreases. You feel more grounded, more capable, more at home in your own skin. Movement doesn't just calm anxiety. It builds the strength and resilience that prevent anxiety from taking root in the first place. So find your movement. Start small if you need to, but start. Your body wants to move. It's designed for it. And when you honor that design, your mind finds peace. Chapter 7, Nourishing Calm. How what you eat affects how you feel. There's a conversation happening right now between your gut and your brain. It's a constant chemical dialogue that profoundly influences your mood, your anxiety levels, and your mental clarity. What you eat isn't just fuel for your body. It's information that tells your cells, your hormones, and your brain how to function. For too long, we've treated mental health as entirely separate from physical health, as if the mind exists in isolation from the body. But the truth is that your mental state is deeply influenced by what you put into your body. Anxiety can be triggered and amplified by dietary choices, and it can be reduced by nutritional strategies. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She was a marketing executive who'd struggled with anxiety for years. She tried therapy, medication, and various anxiety management techniques with moderate success. But her anxiety remained stubbornly persistent, especially in the mornings and late afternoons. She felt shaky, irritable, and overwhelmed. Then she worked with a nutritionist who looked at her typical diet: black coffee for breakfast, a large sugary latte mid-morning, a quick sandwich for lunch, chips or candy when she felt stressed, and a large dinner late in the evening, often with wine. Her nutritionist suggested that her diet might be contributing to her anxiety more than she realized. Jennifer was skeptical. How could what she ate affect her anxiety? But she agreed to make changes. She started eating protein-rich breakfasts, eliminated the sugary morning latte, ate balanced meals throughout the day, reduced her caffeine and sugar intake, and limited alcohol. Within 2 weeks, she noticed a dramatic difference. The morning shakiness disappeared. Her afternoon anxiety lessened. Her mood stabilized. She had more energy and felt more emotionally resilient. The food-mood connection was undeniable. So how exactly does food affect anxiety? Let's start with blood sugar. Your brain requires a steady supply of glucose to function properly. When your blood sugar drops too low, your body releases stress hormones, including adrenaline and cortisol, to mobilize stored glucose. These are the same hormones released during the stress response. Your body literally can't tell the difference between actual danger and low blood sugar. This means that skipping meals, eating primarily simple carbohydrates, or consuming lots of sugar creates a blood sugar roller coaster that mimics and triggers anxiety. You might feel fine immediately after eating sugar, but then comes the crash: shakiness, irritability, difficulty concentrating, and anxiety. The solution is eating balanced meals that include protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. This combination provides steady, sustained energy rather than spikes and crashes. Protein and fat slow down the absorption of carbohydrates, preventing blood sugar from spiking and crashing. Let me give you a practical day of anxiety-reducing eating. Morning. Start with a glass of water upon waking. Breakfast might be scrambled eggs with spinach and avocado on whole grain toast, or Greek yogurt with berries, nuts, and a drizzle of honey. Include protein and healthy fats to stabilize blood sugar for the morning. 1 cup of coffee or green tea if desired. Mid-morning. If you're hungry, have a small snack combining protein and complex carbohydrates, an apple with almond butter or carrots with hummus. Stay hydrated with water. Lunch. A balanced meal with protein, vegetables, and complex carbs. A salad with grilled chicken, quinoa, and lots of vegetables with olive oil dressing. Or a bowl with salmon, brown rice, and roasted vegetables. Afternoon. Another small snack if needed. A handful of nuts or some cheese with whole grain crackers. Herbal tea if you want something warm. Dinner. Another balanced meal, eaten at least 2 to 3 hours before bed if possible. Baked fish with sweet potato and steamed broccoli, or stir-fry with tofu, vegetables, and brown rice. Evening. If you want something after dinner, choose something that won't disrupt sleep. Herbal tea, a small piece of dark chocolate, or some fruit. This template emphasizes whole foods, balanced macronutrients, steady blood sugar, and foods that support rather than undermine your nervous system. Now, I want to address emotional eating, which is common among people with anxiety. Food, especially sugary or high-fat comfort foods, can provide temporary relief from uncomfortable emotions. Eating triggers the release of dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, creating a short-term mood boost. The problem is that this creates a cycle. You feel anxious, you eat for comfort, you get a temporary mood boost, but then you feel guilty or your blood sugar crashes, and you feel worse, so you eat again. Emotional eating doesn't address the underlying anxiety. It just provides temporary distraction and ultimately makes you feel worse physically and emotionally. Breaking the emotional eating cycle requires awareness and alternative coping strategies. When you feel the urge to eat, but you're not physically hungry, pause and ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? What do I really need? Maybe you're anxious, and what you really need is to practice breathing exercises or go for a walk. Maybe you're lonely, and what you need is to call a friend. Maybe you're bored, and what you need is engaging activity, not food. Maybe you're tired, and what you need is rest, not stimulation from sugar. This doesn't mean you can never eat for pleasure or enjoy comfort foods. It means becoming conscious of why you're eating and choosing responses that actually address your needs rather than temporarily masking them. Let me address supplements more specifically. While a healthy diet should be your foundation, certain supplements can support anxiety management. Magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams before bed, can promote relaxation and better sleep. Omega-3 fish oil, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams daily of combined EPA and DHA supports brain health and mood regulation. Vitamin D, if deficient, supplementation based on your doctor's recommendation. Probiotics, a high-quality multi-strain probiotic supports gut health and the gut-brain connection. L-theanine, an amino acid found in green tea that promotes calm alertness without drowsiness. 100 to 200 milligrams can take the edge off anxiety. B-complex, supports neurotransmitter production and stress response. Ashwagandha, an adaptogenic herb that helps the body manage stress. 300 to 500 milligrams daily can reduce anxiety symptoms. Your relationship with food matters too. Food isn't the enemy, and eating isn't something to feel guilty about. Food is nourishment, pleasure, culture, and connection. When you view food through the lens of restriction, guilt, and punishment, you create stress around eating. But when you view food as self-care, as fuel for your body and brain, as something to enjoy mindfully, eating becomes an act of kindness toward yourself. Think about what messages you give yourself about food. Are you constantly saying, I shouldn't eat this, or I'm so bad for eating that? This kind of self-talk creates anxiety around food. Practice reframing. I'm choosing to nourish my body with foods that help me feel good, or I'm enjoying this treat mindfully and without guilt, knowing that balance is what matters. The food-mood connection is real and powerful. What you eat affects your energy, your mood, your sleep, your cognitive function, and yes, your anxiety levels. But this is empowering information, not another burden. You have control over what you put into your body, which means you have one more powerful tool for managing anxiety. Start where you are. Make one small change this week. Maybe it's eating breakfast with protein. Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's reducing your afternoon caffeine. Whatever change you choose, approach it with curiosity and self-compassion, not judgment. Your body is doing its best to support you. When you nourish it properly, it responds by functioning better. More stable mood, clearer thinking, better sleep, and yes, less anxiety. Food is medicine, and every meal is an opportunity to support your mental health and build the calm, resilient life you deserve. Chapter 8. Building your support system. You don't have to do this alone. One of the cruelest tricks anxiety plays is convincing you that you're alone. It whispers that no one else understands, that you're uniquely broken, that reaching out for help is a sign of weakness. It tells you to isolate yourself, to handle everything on your own, to keep your struggles hidden. This is a lie, and it's a dangerous one. Human connection is not just nice to have, it's essential for mental health. Study after study shows that strong social connections are one of the most powerful predictors of well-being and resilience. People with supportive relationships recover from stress faster, experience less anxiety and depression, and even live longer than those who are isolated. Let me tell you about Rachel. She was a successful lawyer who appeared confident and capable to everyone around her. But inside, she was drowning in anxiety. She couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate, and lived in constant fear that people would discover she was falling apart. She told no one what she was experiencing because she believed she should be strong enough to handle it alone. Her anxiety continued to worsen until one day, exhausted and desperate, she broke down and told her closest friend what she'd been going through. She expected judgment or dismissal. Instead, her friend said, "I had no idea you were struggling, but I'm so glad you told me. I've dealt with anxiety too. You're not alone in this." That conversation changed everything for Rachel. Just knowing that someone else understood, that she wasn't uniquely flawed, that help was available. It lifted a weight she'd been carrying for years. She started therapy, joined a support group, and gradually built a network of people she could be honest with. Her anxiety didn't disappear overnight, but she was no longer facing it alone, and that made all the difference. Isolation amplifies anxiety. When you're alone with your thoughts, they can spiral unchecked. There's no reality check, no perspective, no reminder that your catastrophic predictions are just thoughts, not facts. But connection provides all of these things. When you share what you're experiencing with someone who listens without judgment, something shifts. The anxiety loses some of its power. You remember that you're human, that struggle is part of the human experience, and that you don't have to carry this burden alone. So how do you build a support system when anxiety makes reaching out feel terrifying? Let's start with understanding what supportive relationships actually look like. A supportive person is someone who listens without immediately trying to fix you or give advice. They validate your feelings rather than dismissing them. They offer presence rather than solutions. They're trustworthy, non-judgmental, and consistent. You might already have people like this in your life, a partner, family member, close friend, or colleague, or you might need to actively seek them out. Either way, building your support system is one of the most important investments you can make in your mental health. Start by identifying safe people to confide in. Who in your life has shown themselves to be trustworthy? Who has been kind and non-judgmental in the past? Who has perhaps shared their own struggles with you, showing vulnerability? These are potential members of your support network. You don't need to reveal everything at once. Start small. You might say something like, "I've been dealing with some anxiety lately, and I'm working on managing it better. I wanted you to know because your support means a lot to me." See how they respond. If they're receptive and supportive, you can share more over time. Let's talk about what to do when people don't respond helpfully. Not everyone will understand anxiety. Some people might say things like just relax, or you have nothing to worry about, or you're being too sensitive. These responses, while usually well-intentioned, are not helpful and can make you feel more alone. If someone responds unhelpfully, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you or that you shouldn't have opened up. It means that person isn't equipped to provide the support you need, and that's okay. Not everyone can be part of your inner circle of support. Thank them for listening and simply don't rely on them for emotional support around anxiety. Save those conversations for people who do understand. Professional support is crucial and shouldn't be overlooked. Therapists are trained specifically to help with anxiety. They provide tools, strategies, and a safe space to explore what's driving your anxiety. They're objective, non-judgmental, and focused entirely on your well-being. Many people resist therapy because they think it means they're weak or seriously mentally ill. This couldn't be further from the truth. Seeking therapy is an act of strength. It means you're taking your mental health seriously and investing in yourself. You wouldn't hesitate to see a doctor for a physical health concern. Your mental health deserves the same attention. If you're considering therapy, look for someone who specializes in anxiety and uses evidence-based approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, or mindfulness-based approaches. Many therapists offer a free consultation call where you can get a sense of whether they're a good fit. Don't be afraid to try different therapists until you find one you connect with. Support groups are another powerful resource. Whether in person or online, anxiety support groups connect you with people who truly understand what you're going through because they're experiencing it too. There's something uniquely healing about being in a room or virtual space where you don't have to explain or justify your anxiety. Everyone just gets it. Support groups also provide hope. When you see others who've made progress, who've learned to manage their anxiety and live full lives, it reminds you that recovery is possible. You learn strategies from others who've tried them. You realize you're not alone, not strange, and not broken. Online communities can be helpful too. They'll be selective about which ones you engage with. Look for communities that are focused on recovery and support, not on sharing horror stories that amplify anxiety. Well-moderated groups that emphasize evidence-based strategies and mutual encouragement can be incredibly valuable. Daniel found an online anxiety support forum where people shared coping strategies, celebrated small victories, and supported each other through difficult moments. He'd check in daily, reading others' posts, and occasionally sharing his own struggles. He said it was like having a team of people who understood him, available 24/7 whenever he needed encouragement. Let me emphasize something crucial. Reaching out is brave. Asking for help is strong. Admitting you're struggling takes more courage than pretending everything is fine. Our culture sometimes celebrates suffering in silence and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but this is misguided. We're social creatures. We're meant to support each other. Needing help is not a weakness. It's part of being human. If you take nothing else from this chapter, remember this. You don't have to face anxiety alone. There are people who understand, who care, and who want to help. There are professionals trained specifically to support you. There are communities of people who share your struggles. Connection is available if you're willing to reach for it. Start today. Reach out to one person. Schedule a therapy appointment. Join an online support group. Take one small step toward connection. It might feel scary, but on the other side of that fear is the support, understanding, and compassion you deserve. You are not alone in this journey, and you never have to be. Chapter 9. Facing your fears. The path through anxiety, not around it. There's a pattern that most people with anxiety fall into, and it seems perfectly logical. When something makes you anxious, you avoid it. Driving on the highway gives you panic attacks? Stop driving on highways. Social events trigger anxiety? Stop going to social events. Public speaking terrifies you? Avoid any situation where you might have to speak publicly. This avoidance provides immediate relief. Your anxiety decreases when you avoid the trigger, which reinforces the behavior. Your brain learns, avoiding this situation kept me safe. But here's the devastating truth. Avoidance is fertilizer for anxiety. Every time you avoid something because of anxiety, you make the anxiety stronger and your world smaller. Let me tell you about James. He had a panic attack while driving on the freeway. It was terrifying. His heart raced. He felt like he couldn't breathe, and he was convinced he was going to crash. He managed to pull over and eventually calm down, but the experience traumatized him. So he started avoiding freeways entirely. He took surface streets everywhere, even when it added an hour to his commute. At first, this seemed like a reasonable solution, but then he had another panic attack on a surface street. So he started avoiding that street, then another street. Before long, James could only drive a few familiar routes close to home. His world kept shrinking. He turned down job opportunities because they required driving to unfamiliar places. He stopped visiting friends who lived farther away. His entire life was being dictated by his anxiety. What James didn't understand, but eventually learned, is that avoidance teaches your brain that the feared situation is truly dangerous. Each time you avoid, you reinforce the threat. You never learn that you can handle the situation, that the catastrophe you fear doesn't actually happen, and that anxiety itself isn't dangerous, even though it's uncomfortable. The path out of this trap is called exposure, and while it sounds scary, it's one of the most effective treatments for anxiety we have. Exposure means gradually, systematically facing the things you fear in a controlled, manageable way. Not recklessly throwing yourself into your worst nightmare, but methodically approaching feared situations while using the anxiety management tools you've learned. Here's how exposure works. When you face a feared situation and stay with it long enough, not running away, not using safety behaviors, your anxiety will naturally rise, peak, and then decrease. This is called habituation. Your nervous system realizes that the feared catastrophe isn't happening, that you're handling the situation, and that the alarm can be turned off. But this only happens if you stay in the situation long enough for habituation to occur. If you run away while your anxiety is still high, you reinforce the fear. You teach your brain, see, we were in danger. We escaped just in time. But if you stay until your anxiety decreases naturally, you teach your brain, we faced this, nothing terrible happened, and we're okay. Let's talk about how to do exposure effectively. First, you create what's called a fear hierarchy, a list of feared situations ranked from least to most anxiety-provoking. Let's use James's driving anxiety as an example. Level 1. Sitting in a parked car on a quiet street. Anxiety level, 2 out of 10. Level 2. Driving around the block in his neighborhood. Anxiety level, 3 out of 10. Level 3. Driving to a nearby familiar place. Anxiety level, 4 out of 10. Level 4. Driving on a slightly less familiar route. Anxiety level, 5 out of 10. Level 5. Driving on a busier road during non-rush hour. Anxiety level, 6 out of 10. Level 6. Merging onto a freeway for one exit. Anxiety level, 7 out of 10. Level 7. Driving several exits on the freeway. Anxiety level, 8 out of 10. Level 8. Driving on the freeway during light traffic. Anxiety level, 9 out of 10. Level 9. Driving on the freeway during moderate traffic. Anxiety level, 10 out of 10. James started with level 1. He sat in his parked car and used breathing exercises to manage the mild anxiety that arose. He did this repeatedly until sitting in the car produced almost no anxiety. Then he moved to level 2, driving around the block. Again, he repeated this until his anxiety decreased through habituation. He worked his way up the hierarchy systematically, spending as much time as needed at each level before moving to the next. Some levels required just a few exposures, others required many. But gradually, his confidence grew and his anxiety shrank. Within 3 months, James was driving confidently on freeways again. He'd reclaimed his freedom by facing his fear rather than fleeing from it. This is the power of systematic exposure. It rewires your brain's threat detection system. You're providing new information. I can handle this. This isn't actually dangerous. My anxiety is uncomfortable but manageable. And with enough repetition, your brain updates its assessment. Now, let's talk about some key principles for effective exposure. Gradual. Start with manageable levels of anxiety. You're not trying to traumatize yourself. You're building confidence through small wins that accumulate into major change. Repeated. One exposure isn't enough. You need multiple exposures at each level until habituation occurs and anxiety significantly decreases. Prolonged. Stay in a situation long enough for anxiety to decrease naturally, usually at least 20 to 30 minutes if possible. Don't leave while anxiety is still climbing or at its peak. Without safety behaviors. Safety behaviors are subtle avoidances you use during exposure that prevent full learning. For driving anxiety, a safety behavior might be gripping the steering wheel extremely tight, or only driving in the right lane, or having someone on the phone the whole time. These behaviors whisper, "I'm only safe because of this behavior," preventing you from learning that you're actually safe without them. I want to address something important. Exposure should be challenging but not overwhelming. If you're doing exposure and your anxiety is so high that you can't think, can't use your coping skills, and are just enduring misery, you've jumped too far up your hierarchy. Back down to a less intense exposure. The goal is to stretch your comfort zone, not to traumatize yourself. Think of it like physical exercise. If you're building strength, you add weight gradually. Too little weight doesn't build strength, but too much weight causes injury. Exposure is similar. You want to challenge yourself enough to create growth, but not so much that you overwhelm your system. It's also crucial to combine exposure with the other tools you've learned. Use breathing exercises before and during exposure. Challenge catastrophic thoughts. Practice mindfulness to stay present rather than getting lost in anxious predictions. Take care of your body with good sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Lean on your support system. Exposure isn't about white-knuckling your way through terror. It's about systematically, compassionately teaching your nervous system that it's safe while equipping yourself with tools to manage discomfort. Virtual reality is emerging as a powerful tool for exposure therapy, particularly for phobias like fear of heights or flying. VR allows for controlled, repeatable exposure to feared situations. While it's not exactly the same as real-world exposure, studies show it's highly effective and can be a stepping stone to real-world facing of fears. Let me share one of the most important insights about exposure. Anxiety naturally decreases over time, even without avoidance. Anxiety is like a wave. It rises, crests, and falls. If you ride the wave rather than running from it, you discover it's not endless. This discovery is revolutionary. Now let's address what to do when exposure doesn't seem to work. If you're doing exposures and your anxiety isn't decreasing, consider these possibilities. You're using safety behaviors. Identify and eliminate subtle avoidance behaviors during exposure. You're not doing enough repetitions. 1 or 2 exposures isn't enough. Plan for multiple exposures at each level. You're moving up your hierarchy too quickly. Back down to a less challenging exposure and build more confidence before advancing. You're leaving while anxiety is still high. Stay longer until you feel anxiety beginning to decrease. You're catastrophizing during exposure. Use cognitive techniques to challenge anxious thoughts while facing your fear. There's underlying trauma. Sometimes anxiety is rooted in past trauma that needs to be addressed in therapy before exposure is effective. If exposure is consistently overwhelming or ineffective, work with a therapist who specializes in anxiety treatment. They can guide you through the process and help identify what might be interfering with progress. Let me emphasize something crucial. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear and doing the thing anyway. Every time you do an exposure, every time you face something that makes you anxious rather than avoiding it, you're being courageous. You're building the mental strength that this book promises. Think about the life you want to live. What has anxiety stolen from you? What opportunities have you passed up? What experiences have you avoided? What has your world been reduced to because of fear? Now, imagine gradually reclaiming all of that. Imagine driving wherever you want to go. Imagine attending social events and actually enjoying them. Imagine speaking up in meetings. Imagine traveling trying new things, pursuing opportunities. Imagine making decisions based on your values rather than your anxiety. This is what facing your fears makes possible. Not an anxiety-free life that doesn't exist, but a full life, a rich life, a life where anxiety is present sometimes but doesn't make your decisions for you. The path through anxiety goes through the middle of it, not around it. Avoidance might feel safe, but it's a prison. Facing your fears gradually and systematically is the key that unlocks the door. You've already shown courage by reading this book, by learning these techniques, by committing to change. Now it's time to put that courage into action. Create your fear hierarchy. Start with the smallest, most manageable step. Take that step. Then take the next one and the next one. With each step, you're rewriting the story your anxiety has been telling you. You're teaching your brain new information. You're proving to yourself that you're capable, resilient, and far stronger than you've been led to believe. The journey won't always be comfortable, but it will be worth it. On the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of avoidance is the full, vibrant life you deserve. So take a deep breath, feel your courage rising, and take the first step. Your future self is waiting, and they're proud of you for facing what needs to be faced. Chapter 10. Creating Your Calm Life. Sustainable Practices for Lasting Peace. We've covered a lot of ground together. You've learned about the nature of anxiety, how to calm your body through breath, how to manage anxious thoughts, how to stay present, how to optimize sleep, how to move and nourish your body, how to build supportive connections, and how to face your fears. These are powerful tools that can transform your relationship with anxiety. But here's what matters most: what you do after you finish this audiobook. Will these techniques become part of your daily life, or will they remain just interesting information? The difference between people who overcome anxiety and those who continue to struggle isn't knowledge. It's consistent application. This final chapter is about integration. It's about taking everything you've learned and weaving it into the fabric of your daily life. It's about creating systems, routines, and habits that support your mental health automatically, without requiring constant willpower or decision-making. Think of anxiety management like physical fitness. You can't go to the gym once, learn about nutrition, and expect to be fit forever. Fitness requires ongoing practice, consistent habits, and integration into your lifestyle. Mental health works the same way. The goal isn't to practice these techniques perfectly every single day. The goal is to practice them consistently enough that they become your default response to stress. When anxiety arises, you automatically breathe deeply instead of holding your breath. You naturally challenge catastrophic thoughts instead of believing them. You choose connection over isolation. You face challenges instead of avoiding them. Let's talk about how to create this kind of sustainable practice. Start by designing a daily routine that includes your key anxiety management techniques. This doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. Even 15 to 20 minutes of structured practice can make a profound difference. Here's a simple but effective daily routine. Morning, 10 minutes wake up at a consistent time. Before checking your phone or jumping into the day's demands, spend 5 minutes doing breathing exercises or meditation. Set an intention for the day. Today, I will notice when I'm anxious and respond with breath and self-compassion. Then spend 5 minutes moving your body, stretching, yoga, or a short walk. Throughout the day, take 3 breathing breaks, even if just for 1 minute each. Maybe 1 mid-morning, 1 at lunch, and 1 mid-afternoon. These micro-practices interrupt the stress accumulation that happens during busy days. Evening, 10 minutes, 1 hour before bed. Begin your wind-down routine. Reflect on your day. What went well? What was challenging? What you're grateful for? Practice 5 minutes of breathing or body scan. Then engage in calming activities until sleep. This routine takes about 20 minutes of dedicated time, plus 3 one-minute breaks. That's manageable for almost anyone, and it creates multiple daily touchpoints with your anxiety management practices. But customize this based on your life and needs. If you're a parent with young children, maybe your practice happens during nap time or after kids are in bed. If you work shifts, adjust the timing. If mornings are chaotic, Maybe evening practice is more realistic. The structure matters less than the consistency. Let's talk about tracking your progress, which serves multiple purposes. First, it creates accountability. Second, it helps you see patterns. What techniques work best for you? What triggers your anxiety? What times of day or situations are most challenging? Third, it provides motivation by showing you how far you've come. You can track simply in a notebook or use an app. Track things like sleep quality and duration, exercise completed, anxiety level, 1 to 10 scale, at different times of day, techniques used when anxiety arose, situations that triggered anxiety, victories, no matter how small. David kept a simple daily log. Each evening, he rated his overall anxiety for the day, noted what techniques he used, and wrote one thing he accomplished despite anxiety. Looking back over weeks and months, he could see his anxiety trending downward and his accomplishments increasing. This visible evidence of progress motivated him to keep going during difficult periods. Anticipate obstacles because they will arise. Life gets busy. Motivation wanes. Old habits feel comfortable even when they're not helpful. Having a plan for obstacles makes you more likely to overcome them. Some common obstacles and solutions. Obstacle: I'm too busy/tired/stressed to practice. Solution: this is when you need practice most. Do a shortened version. Even 3 conscious breaths is better than nothing. Lower the bar during difficult times rather than abandoning practice entirely. Obstacle: I tried this for a week and my anxiety isn't gone. Solution: remember that lasting change takes time. You didn't develop anxiety overnight, and you won't eliminate it overnight. Celebrate small improvements and trust the process. Obstacle: I had a setback, my anxiety got worse again. Solution: setbacks are normal and part of the process, not signs of failure. Return to your basics: breathing, challenging thoughts, reaching out for support. Each setback you navigate through builds resilience. Obstacle: I'm not sure if this is working. Solution: look at your tracking data. Talk to people who know you. Are they noticing changes? Remember where you started. Often we're making more progress than we realize because change is gradual. Sarah hit a major setback when her anxiety spiked after months of improvement. She felt defeated, like all her progress had been erased. Her therapist reminded her that she now had tools she didn't have before and that she'd navigated through this situation before, meaning she could do it again. Sarah used her breathing techniques, challenged her catastrophic thoughts, and reached out to her support system. Within 2 weeks, she'd returned to her previous level of functioning, and she'd proven to herself that setbacks don't erase progress. They're opportunities to practice resilience. Let's discuss self-compassion, which needs to be woven through everything you do. The harsh, critical voice that many anxious people have toward themselves amplifies anxiety. When you make a mistake, when you feel anxious despite your best efforts, when you skip your practice for a day, the critical voice says, "You're failing. You're not good enough. You'll never get better." This voice is not helping you. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend. When you struggle, instead of criticism, you offer understanding. "This is hard. I'm doing my best. It's okay to struggle sometimes. I could try again." Research shows that self-compassion is strongly associated with resilience and mental health. People who are kind to themselves recover from setbacks faster, are more motivated to change unhelpful behaviors, and experience less anxiety and depression. Practice this deliberately. When you notice self-criticism, pause and reframe. What would you say to someone you love who was in your situation? Say that to yourself instead. Now let's talk about what to do when you're facing particularly challenging periods, major life stressors, unexpected crises, or times when anxiety spikes despite your best efforts. This is when you need to intensify your self-care and lean heavily on your support system. During high-stress periods, increase your daily practice time if possible. Reach out to your therapist, support group, or trusted friends more frequently. Be extra careful about sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Don't let these slide. Lower expectations in other areas. It's okay if the house isn't perfect where you're not as productive. Use anxiety management techniques multiple times throughout the day. Remember that this is temporary. High-stress periods don't last forever. Let's address medication, which some people need and others don't. Medication is a valid tool for managing anxiety, particularly during severe periods or when anxiety is significantly impairing your life. If you're working with a psychiatrist and medication helps you function while you build your coping skills, that's completely okay. There's no shame in using medication as part of your treatment plan. The techniques in this book work powerfully whether you're taking medication or not. Many people use medication temporarily while developing their anxiety management skills, then gradually taper off under medical supervision. Others find that ongoing medication combined with these practices gives them the best quality of life. Work with your healthcare provider to determine what's right for you. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to remind you of something crucial. You are not your anxiety. Anxiety is something you experience, not something you are. You're a complex, capable, valuable person who happens to deal with anxiety. This distinction matters. OUV learned powerful tools on this journey. You understand what anxiety is and why it happens. You know how to use your breath to calm your nervous system. You can challenge anxious thoughts and choose different perspectives. You understand the power of presence, the importance of sleep, the healing potential of movement and nutrition. You know you don't have to face this alone, and you've learned that facing your fears, rather than avoiding them, is the path to freedom. But knowledge alone changes nothing. It's what you do with this knowledge that matters. Starting today, commit to applying what you've learned. Not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently. Choose 1 or 2 practices to implement this week. Build from there. Small, consistent actions create remarkable transformations over time. Some days will be harder than others. You'll have setbacks. You'll forget to practice. Your anxiety will spike, sometimes despite your best efforts. This is all normal. What matters is that you keep coming back. Each time you return to your practices after forgetting, you're building resilience. Each time you use a technique when anxiety arises, you're rewiring your brain. Each day you choose to face rather than avoid, you're reclaiming your life. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up without dread, to move through your days with confidence, to sleep soundly at night. You deserve a life where anxiety doesn't make your decisions. This life is possible. The tools are in your hands. The journey begins now. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. Trust the process. And remember, every single time you practice these techniques, every moment you choose calm over chaos, every instance you face fear rather than flee from it, you're building the mental strength and peaceful life you deserve. You got this. I believe in you. Now, go create your calm life. Conclusion, your new beginning. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Over the past hours, we've explored anxiety from every angle, understanding its origins, learning practical techniques to manage it, and discovering how to build lasting mental strength. But this isn't an ending. This is your new beginning. Everything you need to manage anxiety and create a calmer life is now within you. You have the knowledge, the techniques, and the understanding. What happens next is up to you. Will you put this into practice, or will these remain just interesting ideas? I encourage you to start today. Right now, take 3 deep breaths. Feel your body respond. That simple act is the beginning of your transformation. Choose one technique from this audiobook that resonated most strongly with you. Maybe it's daily breathing practice, or mindful walking, or challenging anxious thoughts. Commit to practicing that one technique for the next 7 days. Just one technique, practiced consistently, can create ripples of positive change throughout your life. Remember, you're not trying to eliminate anxiety completely. You're learning to change your relationship with it. You're building the strength to feel anxiety without being controlled by it. You're creating a life where anxiety is present sometimes, but it doesn't run the show. On difficult days, return to the basics. Breathe, challenge the thought, move your body, reach out for support, face what needs to be faced. You have a toolkit now. Use it, and be kind to yourself along the way. This journey requires courage, and you've already shown that courage by being here, by learning, by committing to change. You're stronger than your anxiety. You're more resilient than you know. And you're worthy of the peace and calm you're working toward. Your calm life is waiting. It's built one breath at a time, one challenge thought at a time, one courageous action at a time. And it starts now. Go forward with confidence. You've got everything you need. The calm, strong, peaceful version of you is not somewhere in the distant future. It's being built right now, with each choice you make. I'm honored to have been part of your journey. Now go live the life you deserve. Full, rich, vibrant, and free. Take a deep breath. Feel your strength. And step forward into your new beginning. You've got this. Thank you for listening to The Calm Mind. How to stay calm, control anxiety, and build mental strength in daily life. Remember, peace is not the absence of anxiety. Peace is knowing you can handle whatever comes. And now, you have the tools to do exactly that. Breathe deeply. Live fully. You deserve it.